Today is the last class of the year, and is there a better way to say goodbye to 2025 than taking some time for ourselves, than listening to spiritual topics that actually nurture us? Chandramukhi is joining us today to guide us through the last topic of the year. We'll be going through chapter 3, verses 10 to 12, and the session is titled Spiritual Ecology Living in Harmony with the Universe. So, welcome everyone. Welcome Chandramukhi to this session. So glad to have you here.
So nice to be here. Thank you.
Yes, I think it's a really intriguing term, this spiritual ecology. I think it's my first time hearing about it, so looking forward to it.
Thank you. Yes, it's a very apt way to sum up the three verses that we'll be discussing today, and how our connection with the universe is discussed in these verses. So today, as Subhadra said, our topic is spiritual ecology, living in harmony with the universe. And as Krishna is talking to Arjuna through these verses, he's bringing in another dimension, rather than just looking at our personal connection with God, but actually looking at and as this chapter is situated in, looking very much at living without attachment to the results, and living, finding peace and happiness through that. So this is bringing our connection even further out to the universe, and how actually the whole universe is set up similar to like an ecosystem. So spiritual ecosystem, spiritual ecology, where everything is, if we work in balance with the universe, then everything becomes in peace and harmony in our lives. So that's what we will be discussing today, and how if we cooperate with the greater system that sustains us, and how this universe is built in with a cycle of giving, receiving, and offering back. And if we live in harmony with that, then we can stay balanced and live with abundance. We can live with peace. We can live with harmony around us, and ultimately return to our divine source. So that's a little summary of what we'll be talking about today. So first of all, I'll offer my obeisances, my heart, like flowers, actually, it can be said, onto the lotus feet of my beloved Gurudev, Om Vishnupad Shishimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, and unto all of our illustrious teachers, especially my grandfather Guru Nityalila Pravista Om Vishnupad Shishimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who has written such beautiful commentaries on this Bhagavad Gita to share with the whole world. Namam Vishnupadaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shishimad Bhaktivedanta Narayaniti Namine. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindobhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaye Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya namo namaha. So before we look at the verse today, I just want to start with a little introduction, because spiritual ecology is something we probably haven't really heard of or discussed before. And just to bring it back to nature, how the ecosystem or the ecology around us, basically it relies on a balance. And if something is taken from nature, something changes and things get out of balance. And just to give a really simple example, in Australia, for example, cane toads were introduced back in 1935 to trying to control cane beetle pests in sugarcane crops, right? But because they're not native to Australia and they don't fit in the ecosystem here, it led to really bad problems, and they've become like rampant throughout Australia. And for example, they'll kill if snakes eat them, they'll die, and then the good snakes that kill off the really poisonous snakes if there's less of them, then there's going to be more poisonous snakes, things like that. So it's just a little idea. And we know that the ecology of the world is unbalanced in so many ways because of the exploitation that's going on and trying to interfere with nature, basically. And so then if we can think, well, okay, let's go beyond that then. Let's think on a global perspective in relation to the soul and spirit, and this is the spiritual side of the world as well, integrated within that. So when there's an imbalance in the way the whole system, there's going to be imbalances in life, imbalances within ourselves. And so in these verses, Krishna is going to be telling Arjuna about the system, the system. It's like a spiritual ecology. You can liken it like that, where it's a system of giving, receiving, and offering that sustains life. And when we cooperate with this system, our life flows. And when we resist it, life feels heavy and strained, and things don't go in harmony. So we'll take a look at the verse and then we'll dive into the details. So we'll look at the first verse to start with, which is Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, verse 10. Sahayagya praja shristva purovacha prajapati anena prasavishyadvam eshavostvisha kamaduk. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yagya," sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you all desirable things. So in this verse, well, first of all, it's describing how this world wasn't created randomly. It's designed with purpose. It's designed with process. It's not just happening. It is actually a purpose behind everything. And ultimately, in this world, we've come here because we've forgotten our spiritual nature. We've forgotten God, and we actually wanted to turn away from God and lorded over this material energy as little lords, really, as gods. We wanting to be like God and have everything our way, and all the enjoying through our senses, trying to find our happiness as separate from God. But then at the same time, this world is we're not here to just do that forever, because then we get the results of our actions. We experience suffering, and then we experience karma, action and reaction, and ultimately we start to see, oh, hang on, is that really what's the real purpose of this world? And then if we're eager to know the truth, then God within, who's within our hearts and our nearest and dearest friend, will guide us to the truth, and how this world is actually set up so that we can do that, so that we eventually go, oh, hang on, my Lord, who are you? What's the source of everything? Why am I experiencing pain? Why am I experiencing suffering? And so it's actually, like the Vedas, and specifically the Vedic scriptures of India, they're the original writings of the world, not just India, but of the world, of the whole universe. They're like a guidebook that guides one how to live happily in this world, and then how to transcend this world and realize our eternal spiritual nature as parts and parcels of God, and ultimately turn to our source. So in the Gita, which is actually like a summary of all the different main systems of the Vedic scriptures, Krishna is describing this specific process of yagya, and it's how to participate consciously in life, by which we bring about prosperity and happiness within this life, and then come towards liberation of this world. So as he says in the verse, this yagya, which we're going to describe in more detail, what is yagya, what is sacrifice. When it's performed, it will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. So that's what he's saying in this verse. So what is yagya? And I actually did a little bit more research on this, because in the purports it doesn't go right into it. It goes in, it touches on it, and it explains it to a certain degree. But I wanted to know really, what is yagya? What does it mean? And it was actually quite enlightening to think about that, and then think about it in terms of my own life. And I hope you'll feel the same way. So yagya, the word yagya, yaj means to worship, to honor, to offer, to revere, to sacrifice. So just think about those words for a moment. It's about our dedication and our respect for someone or something, to worship, to honor, to offer, to revere, to sacrifice. And then it also implies with devotion, reverence, and conscious offering. So basically, it's and yagya traditionally is like fire sacrifice. That's what many of us know it as. But actually, it's offering ourselves. It's like actually seeing God within and without everything, and making our life an offering. And so I'll just go a little bit more detail into. In the next verse, Krishna is going to describe what happens when we engage in yagya. But ultimately, yagya is it can be a ritual. It can be using anything in our life. What is it going? Those things that are connecting us with divinity, and with the mood of intention, gratitude, and with the mood of offering. So it's the and so this yagya is at the beginning of creation, as he's saying, and Krishna is saying in this verse, demigods were created and humans were created. For many of us in the Western world, demigods are quite foreign. The Sanskrit word is deva. It's like there's a deva, or a demigod of the sun. There's a demigod of the moon. There's a demigod of the rain, and they're all empowered by God, by Krishna, to maintain and run the universe, basically. And so then he's saying in the next verse, let's go to the next verse, and this discusses how they interact. So in the beginning, that's verse 10. So verse 11, Devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantuva parasparam bhavayanta sheya param avapsyata. The demigods, being pleased by sacrifices, will also please you, thus nourishing one another. There will rain general prosperity for all. So this is where we're describing in detail the spiritual ecology of receiving, of giving, of offering. And so the demigods, they're empowered administrators of material affairs, overseeing all kinds of departments. So rain, sunlight, air, water, seasons, crops. Now, when we look around us, it can seem quite impersonal, but actually everything is so personal. There is a spirit behind everything. It's like they're all empowered parts of the Lord. They're not separate from God. They're working fully in harmony with the will of the divine, divine will, how everything works, so that everything is working. I mean, even for example, when even we just take our body, for example, or the bodies of animals, any insect, anything, it has to be a divine design by a divine intelligence that created it. We have no control of what we eat. It goes in our mouth, and then once it's in there, the whole system goes, the digestive system acts. And even there's devas in our body. The fire of digestion is controlled by Agni, who is the presiding deity of fire. There's actually devas everywhere, demigods everywhere, watching over us, and ensuring that the world is working, because it's not like it's a machine with spirit behind it. Nothing works without spirit behind it, without the spiritual energy behind it. And so God, Krishna is there, God is there as the supreme controller, but then he's empowered other living entities who, during their sojourn in this world, have taken birth as demigods and they have this function to maintain the universe. So they're like administrators in the government, if you could look at it like that. There's the government or the king or the prime minister, and then there's so many other there's the minister for education, the minister for defense, and that kind of thing. So they're like administrators, the administrator of rain, of sunlight, of air. And so the demigods, they respond to consciousness, gratitude, and offering. When we're offering sacrifice or yagya to the demigods, then everything comes in harmony. So in Vedic civilization, we see in previous times, now we're in the age of Kali and the Vedic civilization is in the background, but in ancient times, the Vedic civilization was over the whole world. And everyone was aware of this spiritual ecology where so the demigods, they provide our needs, our necessities of life, and then when we offer them, we offer the demigods an offering of gratitude, then everything works. And in those days, the brahmanas, they were the priestly class, and they would be always offering sacrifices, which is fire yagyas, or fire sacrifices. And the fire was actually like a bridge to the subtle realm. So by offering ghee into the fire, for example, by offering flowers and fruits and things like that, the fire would transform it into something that's very subtle to nourish the demigods, and the demigods become pleased, and then everything in the rain comes at the right time. The there isn't natural disasters that just happen randomly. Everything is in harmony. And then ultimately, the demigods are part and parcel of Krishna. So they are they're kind of like Krishna, part of Krishna's universal body. He is the supreme controller. And then ultimately, any offering or acknowledgement to the demigods goes straight to Krishna. And in the Vedas, and this is what Krishna is describing in these verses, and Srila Prabhupada in the purports is illuminating further that according to the different levels of consciousness of different persons in this world, and the faith that they've developed, some can only be ready to worship the demigods because they want material things as well. They want to pray for wealth, pray for happiness, pray for that, for good children, that kind of thing. But then ultimately, if we go to the source, if we direct our love, our worship, our honor, our gratitude, our offering to God himself, then the demigods who are in charge of the universal affairs are automatically satisfied. And ultimately, the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna and the Bhagavad Gita and the Vedic literatures are guiding the living entity to come to that point, that we don't want to just be focused on the demigods, but actually acknowledge them through acknowledging the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is the Supreme Controller, Shri Krishna, who's speaking this Gita. And so then when our life can simply become an offering for Krishna, then everything becomes harmony, but in harmony. And so traditionally, yagya is often referring to the sacred fire. But it can also, in the Bhagavad Gita, it's describing that action is yagya. Everything we do can be a yagya. It can be an offering. So all of life can become a yagya. Every action that we do can become an offering for the Lord. And so ultimately, the goal, as Krishna is speaking in this verse, when we engage our life in yagya or sacrifice or offering, then material harmony comes. We've received blessings for our life, for the society around us. Our mind becomes purified and cleansed, and we become situated in our real ego, which is in our spirit soul's nature. And then gradually we move beyond personal desire for selfish enjoyment, and we become in harmony and in alignment with the will of the Supreme. And so ultimately, this yagya means offering the self, offering our ego, offering our desires, offering our actions to the divine. And it means also performing our duty without attachment, as this chapter is very much focused on karma yoga, which is offering whatever we have and offering that to the Lord. All that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, do as an offering of me, Krishna says in the Gita. And I mean, even before that is just becoming free from the desire for the results of your action. But then we can turn those actions into an offering. So whatever we eat, how we breathe, how we are giving, how we are learning, how we are using the resources around us, how we treat others, how can we link those to God? And if we're linking those to God, then we're in harmony. And if we are trying to act separate to that, then there's going to be discord. And that's the natural way this world is set up, so that we get trained that nobody wants disharmony, discord. Nobody wants to be pressured and feel anxious and overwhelmed. But the key to solving all those kinds of problems is this yagya, or offering ourselves to God through looking at every little aspect of our life and how we can do that. So that's this second verse. He's saying the demigods being pleased by sacrifices, and ultimately he's speaking about God being pleased, the supreme controller being pleased by this yagya. They will please you, and thus by cooperation with men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. So once the demigods are pleased, and once ultimately Krishna is pleased, then there is prosperity. And we see in previous times, in the ancient times, there was very little suffering. There was like in Satya Yuga, which is known as the Golden Age. Right now we're in the Iron Age, but in the Golden Age, and then the other ages even before the Iron Age has come, there was so much prosperity, because can you imagine the whole world working towards living in harmony with God? Every single person. And if every single person, under the guidance of Raja Rishi kings, who are great saintly self-realized kings, who are guiding the whole humanity in how to live their life happily and then in relationship with God, then there's prosperity everywhere. The earth used to naturally produce grains and fruits and vegetables. The rain would come just at the right time. But when there's so many people who are living outside, like pulling away from this spiritual ecology and trying to live with a separate mood to God, with living with trying to exploit others, and there's so many of those persons in the world, then it's going to be thrown off. The universal harmony is going to be thrown off. So then we'll have droughts, or we'll have too much rain, or too much rain, not enough rain, or massive disasters, and it's ultimately because the universal ecology is thrown out of balance, because there isn't this yagya going on. There isn't this natural rhythm, engaging one's life in the natural rhythm of connecting with God through every aspect of our life. Then the whole universe and the whole world, it becomes thrown out of balance. But if people become, and this is actually Srila Prabhupada's books, actually they're known for, like the law books for humanity. And he writes in so many of his purports how the world can live, like how rulers of different countries can guide the people, and it's like law books of how to live in this world happily in God consciousness. And that is like looking at it in a global level. So this, we'll just go to the third verse. I'm nearly finished my time, so I'll try and fit in the third verse now. Verse 12. Ishtan Bogan Hivo Deva Dashyante Yagya Bhavita Tardhatan Ar Apradayabhyo Yo Bhunkte Stena Evasa. In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the yagya sacrifice, supply all necessities to man. But he who enjoys these gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. And this is what we see happening, and that's why there's the imbalance, so much imbalance in the world. So taking without offering disrupts the system. And when we're just exploiting, when we're using the resources that we've been given by God that are around us, the metals, the crops, the oxygen, the time. I mean, none of us can actually produce that, right? We can't produce sunlight. We can try and we produce electricity because we have the intelligence given by God ultimately. But no one can produce sunlight. No one in this world can produce rain. No one can produce crops with the food grains and the vegetables. They are coming from, I mean, we have the ability to make plant the crops, but how they grow and the rain that comes and the sunlight, that's out of our control. The metals that are in the earth that get mined to create so many different things that we use, the oxygen we breathe, and even the time that we have every day. All of these come by the Lord's arrangement, and they're delivered to us through the demigods, they're like departments of the universal affairs. And so everything we use for survival or industry originates by the Lord's arrangement. And when we only consume it without offering back, so we don't acknowledge the source, then it's actually a theft. We're stealing things that aren't ours. But when we use it in the service of God, then that is its proper use. Nothing belongs to us. We come into this world with nothing. We leave this world with nothing. Everything is provided to us by God, whether we believe in Him or not. And so if we just using it for our own sense enjoyment, then we're disrupting the system and we disrupt the balance in our own life and the world around us. But when we use those resources and everything that's provided to us as an offering to God, then everything's in balance. So a society that's built on this kind of exploitation and extracting from the environment, there's going to be so much anxiety, so much competitiveness, and everyone's going to be so spiritually dry. But those who do the opposite, and even if the whole society isn't doing it, living in harmony with the universe, then we're in harmony with ourselves, and then we can influence those around us from there, and we can attain meaning, direction, and peace through that. So that culture of giving back actually builds peace, builds clarity, it builds flow in our life, and then our life is supported, and ultimately we can come towards self-realization and giving up this exploitation of taking. And we can see it all around us, how in this modern world there's overconsumption of material, of resources of the world. There's environmental strain because of it. There's so much mental health disturbances, with this whole take mentality and not giving. And the whole mood of service softens the heart and gives us stability inside, whereas that taking mentality actually disturbing to the mind. So understanding where everything is coming from, having gratitude for every little thing in our life, and then engaging in activities that are going to reconnect us with our spiritual side of our life and connect us with offering ourselves to God, then that's engaging in this yagya, which is the natural way this world is set up, as Krishna is describing in these verses. So just to finish off with a couple of points about bringing these teachings into our daily life. I was meditating on these verses the last few days because I had to give this talk, and it's such a good opportunity to do that, to really go deeper into the verses. And I was just thinking, well, how can I do that? What am I doing? And yesterday I was buying a few dolls for my 6-year-old daughter, and I'm thinking, well, how am I going to make this a yagya? And then I thought, okay, well, and then one thing we haven't mentioned, and this is one thing, because this is one thing I thought of, but one thing we need to highlight really importantly, and how Srila Prabhupada describes that the best yagya in this day and age is Sankirtan yagya. It is the process of chanting God's names. This is actually a yagya. It's a way of connecting us with God in a very, very powerful way, because sound vibration is so powerful. And we've explained this in many other classes, and I don't have time to go into details. But as this Sankirtan yagya, engaging our mouth in sound vibration of God's names, and our ears and our body even, then this is the ultimate yagya that pleases God, that pleases all the demigods, and that can bring, in this particular age because it's difficult to in this age to do this yagya or that yagya as described in the Vedas, but to actually get to the essence in this age of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, either on our own, in groups of others, and we just try this and take the medicine of these holy names every single day. Then we either with japa or with singing it out loudly with beautiful songs. It actually purifies the heart and brings one closer to Krishna. And this type of yagya actually brings the whole universe into alignment. But first, it's got to be our little universe, our around us. If we come into alignment with the universe, that's our body, our mind, our family, our friends, and bringing our life into alignment, then that's going to, what is it? That saying, think globally, act locally. So if we can daily connect with kirtan, with chanting God's names, that yagya, is the most powerful offering, that sacrifice. And then obviously there's so many other things that we can look at into life. So back to the doll story. So I was thinking, okay, well, I could teach my daughter how, I can say, well, because little 6-year-olds are just absorbed in play all the time. Let's teach the dolls how to sing kirtan. I mean, there's different. It's all about our attitude, right? How we can change and dovetail everything rather than making everything just for ourselves. How can I use this activity wherever it is, what I'm eating, what am I doing, what am I working, how I'm breathing, even how I'm sleeping. Every little thing we can somehow or other link to our relationship with divinity, rather than the opposite, which is forgetfulness of divinity. And that's what we've been doing for so many lifetimes, forgetting our relationship with God. But when we can look at every little thing in our life, and maybe we can even, right now it's the end of the year, it's nearly New Year's Day, so it's time to make New Year's resolutions. So perhaps we can make a New Year's resolution to, on a daily basis, be observers in our life and see how much am I taking from the resources of God and using it for myself, or how much am I using it in God's service and making my life an offering. So I'll finish there, and if anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.
Thanks so much, Chandramukhi, for such an enlightening talk. We have a question by Sienna. She says, can you share any examples of how we can offer our actions, or how we can incorporate this into daily life? Like, is there any special ritual or steps we should take to do this?
So as I mentioned, one of the main things that we can do is to adopt a spiritual practice into our life, like a mantra meditation. And that specifically, and I actually wanted to talk about that more through the whole talk, but we kind of got up to that at the end. That is like the main yagya or offering, sacrifice for this age. And if we can try and do that daily within whatever we're doing, whether we're cleaning, whether we're cooking, whether we're working, sitting in the office, not so much to do, then let's sing some of God's names. Would it? But then at the same time, that is so purifying. And if we can start off our day with that kind of because the thing is that God's names are so powerful. When we just try on our own to think, it's not so easy. But when we actually start chanting these names, they're so powerful that they can purify our heart, so that we can actually then spend our whole day easily thinking of God, and then it's easier. So then we can start to look at our different aspects of our life. How is my morning? Break it up into the day. How is my morning an offering to God? What am I doing? And when we start the day rising before the sun rises, we're situate that's when we're situated. It's like the time where it's very quiet and peaceful. It's the mode of goodness where you can contemplate and meditate very easily. And so if we can meditate and set our minds during that time before the sun rises, then our whole day will be backed by that consciousness, and we can easily see how to engage in our activities wherever we are. We can be in the present. And if I'm eating, what am I eating? And then actually this is going to be the topic of my next talk, is all about eating, because that's such a big part of our daily life. But how am I offering that food first to God, and then taking that as his direct mercy? So everything in life, actually, it's up to us just to look at the different aspects of our life. But very, very important is start the day right. And we start the day before the sun rises, because when the sun rises, the mode of passion sets in and action sets in, and we want to do this and we don't want to do that. But if we get our mind and heart connected before then to the Lord, then it's very easy to carry that through the day. That's a little answer to that question. Is there any other questions?
Yes, well, thank you, Sienna, for the question, and of course, Chandramukhi, for that beautiful answer. Well, I have a question too. It's just that I was reflecting on what you mentioned, that how natural it become. In my case, I wasn't even raised in a context where I was taught how important the act of offering is. And even in our society, as you said, we've become disconnected from the idea that cycles are not just something to study. Like we say, okay, this is the cycle of water when we go to school, and that's it, right? But actually, as humans, we have the right and responsibility to embrace them and make them part of our lives, so we can live in harmony with nature. But I see that in my experience, and I've seen it in other people too. Um, we tend to see this as primitive. I think because of the way history has presented it, like primitive tribes in the past did this because that's the way they understood the world, or they didn't know all of these great scientific concepts to explain natural phenomena. So they didn't know how to explain how things actually worked. And I don't know, has this happened to you, or do you know somebody who has faced this apparent contradiction between modern concepts and this whole idea of, nature is also personal and we can actually establish a relationship, interact, or offer? I don't know, how has your experience been regarding this, or do you know somebody's experience on this matter?
I can't really say directly experience, but I think just contemplating that, it kind of, there's two different mindsets, right? There's the service mindset, and there's the exploitative mindset. Me, I. And I think that those two things can permeate our life with like a whole world view. And it's become like, in modern civilization, it's become cool to go away from your natural source, unfortunately, right? It's like that's the norm. And whereas the norm in previous times was different, and it's based on the mindset of exploitation and trying to enjoy, like your purpose in life is to enjoy. You've only lived once, and you might as well enjoy as much as you can, and then you'll be happy. And that's a false premise, because it's based on bodily concept of life, based on a thinking that we're the body and that the purpose of life is to enjoy through the senses in my body. And so that translates into so many other areas. And I think that those who are spiritual seekers, they start to see through that. I mean, you look in the 60s, how there's so many people trying to like go against the norm that was in the world. Like, well, the normal thing you do is you get an education and you have a family, and you try and make the American dream happen in your life, uh, and that's all seen as the norm. And it's become normal that ancient or previous cultures were primitive. But if we actually look at, rather than looking through the story that we've been told in the Western schooling system, if we look at the actual, like, if, for example, and even in Aboriginal culture in Australia, the way we were taught about the native people is so simple. Like, their life is so simple and primitive, but actually it's so complex, and they're so connected with nature, way more than the universal workings of nature. So we can actually learn from ancient cultures, but then it's just about translating those essences, in the essence of those teachings, into our life now. But they're universal principles, and I mean, the Vedic literatures are the first literatures in the entire universe, the entire world, and there's so much in there that might be irrelevant too, but because it's there's so much. But the Bhagavad Gita is taking us to the essence of these teachings and really bringing them out into our modern life. Anyway, these topics could be we could talk about them for a long time.
Yes, well, I think this Vedic literature and everything that comes from it, like the Bhagavad Gita and other sources of knowledge, are a true gift. And I want to thank you so much for the time you've taken to present this to us in a practical and understandable way. And I think this is here for those who have ears to hear. So those who want to hear, they're gonna take it. They're gonna embrace it. They're gonna try to walk through this path. And well, thank you so much again, Chandramukhi, for your time and for sharing with us these realizations that you have. It's really important to listen from a person who is practicing and who can share their experience with us.
Thank you.
So, well, I was thinking that we could go through some comments. Here, Colleen, who always joins us, much appreciated. Subhadra and Chandramukhi, always look forward to your questions. Thank you, Colleen. You're always joining us. That's really nice to see you in every session. And also, she says, thank you for the practice of singing, chanting into alignment with our lives. And Sienna, to the answer to her question, definitely going to reflect on that for a New Year resolution. Thank you. Thank you. And well, to everybody, too, thanks so much for joining us. Yes, this is our last episode today. Before the session, I was thinking about how we usually rush to make all kinds of arrangements before the year ends and whether they're actually worth our time, right? And I've noticed myself wasting time watching or buying things that I don't really need. And well, now that we have 66 episodes so far in this journey through the Bhagavad Gita, and after everything we've discussed and reflected on, I'd like you to invite you to think about what really matters in your life right now. Also, what Chandramukhi invited us to reflect on about how are we making our daily lives an offering? What are we doing in the morning? What are we doing then during our day? How are we trying to connect our actions to the divinity? And what actions really tune us in with our true self, right? Like, what am I doing to connect with my soul? What truly nurtures me, or what's worth listening to, what's worth doing? How valuable is it to dedicate time to what helps us grow deeply? So, with this, I wish you all a peaceful, reflective, and joyful holiday. And well, this Thursday, we're not going to have class because it's, New Year's. And but we'll see again on January the 5th, 2026. So looking forward to meeting you then. And you can always catch up on our previous episodes on our YouTube channel. And of course, I invite you to follow us on Ashram Talks ENG. So if you're a spiritual soul and you're looking for everlasting happiness and love, and probably that's the reason why you're here. So if you know anyone else who meet these criteria,